There comes a moment in life when the dynamic between parents and their children begins to shift. You've spent years, often decades, raising them, guiding their choices, and sacrificing your own needs to put them first. But then, without warning, something changes. You start to notice they brush off your suggestions. They dismiss your insights. Sometimes they even speak to you with condescension, or worse, treat you as though you're a burden. And that stings. If your children have begun showing signs of disrespect, it's natural to feel disheartened, even angry. You may feel tempted to remind them of every sacrifice you made, every sleepless night, every time you put them ahead of yourself. But here's the truth. Reacting with frustration won't heal the situation. In many cases, it only widens the gap. Fortunately, there's a far more powerful way to reclaim their respect, one that doesn't rely on confrontation or bitterness. Today, I'll walk you through 6 steps you can take when your children no longer treat you with the respect you deserve. These are meaningful shifts, simple, deliberate actions that can dramatically reshape how your children view you. Some might even catch you off guard. But if you stick with me until the end, you'll discover how to reposition yourself as a respected and cherished figure in their lives once again. Action 1. Stop seeking their approval. One of the most common traps parents fall into as they age is trying too hard to gain their children's approval. Maybe you've caught yourself doing this, saying yes when you truly want to say no, rearranging your life to meet their needs, staying silent when you feel unheard, hoping that eventually they'll appreciate you. But the hard reality is this: the more you seek their validation, the less they tend to offer it. Respect doesn't grow from self-sacrifice. It stems from self-respect. When you continuously bend over backward to avoid conflict or make them happy, what you're really teaching them is that your feelings can wait. And once that idea takes hold, it becomes all too easy for them to overlook your needs entirely. I once met a woman named Margaret, once a fiercely independent woman in her younger days. But in later years, she began letting her children dictate everything. She silenced her own preferences, adjusted her schedule to theirs, and quietly endured their patronizing tone. "I just want to keep the peace," she told me. Yet ironically, her passivity led her children to stop valuing her input altogether. In trying to maintain harmony, she lost her voice. If your children no longer respect you, don't start by demanding it. Start by living as though you already deserve it. Set clear boundaries. Learn to say no without guilt. Speak your truth, even if it's not welcomed. The moment you begin treating yourself with the respect you desire from them, you'll start to notice a shift. Eventually, they will too. Action 2. Don't argue, lead by example. When your children disregard your words or speak to you with contempt, it's natural to want to push back. You might feel the urge to defend yourself, to explain why they should treat you better. But here's something that will save you time and heartache. Arguing your way to respect rarely works. Think about it. Have you ever convinced someone to respect you by shouting or debating them into submission? True respect isn't something you win with words. It's something you cultivate through presence, dignity, and consistency. If you meet disrespect with anger, you're inadvertently confirming that they can control your emotions. Let me share Frank's story, a retired teacher who once commanded attention in his classroom. But at home, his grown kids barely acknowledged him. They ignored his advice and sometimes mocked his opinions. Initially, he fought back, determined to restore his authority, but his resistance only deepened the disconnect. Then Frank made a choice. He stopped trying to win. He began listening quietly, responding with calm conviction, and walking through life with a quiet strength. And his children noticed. They saw not a man pleading for their approval, but a man who stood tall regardless. If you want respect, stop chasing it with arguments. Instead, be a living example of what it looks like. Hold your head high. Speak with measured certainty. Refuse to stoop to their level. Over time, your calm dignity will leave an impression more lasting than any heated exchange ever could. Action 3. Detach emotionally. One of the more difficult truths to accept as a parent is that your emotional well-being cannot depend on your children. Of course, you love them deeply. And yes, It's natural to want their love and respect in return. But the more they sense that you need them to feel whole, the more the relationship becomes unbalanced. Respect is often reserved for those who are emotionally self-sufficient. If your happiness relies on their affection or attention, it can feel like pressure. What began as love can start to feel like obligation, and instead of gratitude, they may pull away. Helen's story reflects this perfectly. A warm-hearted mother, she had given everything to her children, but as they got older and busier, she found herself constantly waiting for them to reach out. When they didn't, she called again and again, expressing how much she missed them. Instead of drawing them closer, it pushed them away. Her presence began to feel like a demand. But then Helen did something different. She stopped waiting for the phone to ring. She stopped initiating calls. She turned her attention inward, rediscovered hobbies, spent time with friends, invested in herself. Slowly, her children began reaching out more. They admired her new energy, respected her independence, and made time for her. The takeaway is this: when you stop leaning on your children to fill emotional gaps, you give them the space to miss you, to respect your time, and to value your presence, not out of guilt, but out of admiration. Action 4. Set and enforce boundaries. One of the primary reasons children begin to show disrespect is because the boundaries that once existed have quietly dissolved. If you allow your children to ignore your opinions, speak to you harshly, or treat your time as unimportant, they will, consciously or not, continue that behavior. Setting boundaries doesn't mean cutting people off or sparking conflict. It means calmly and firmly defining what is and isn't acceptable to you, and then standing by those boundaries when they're tested. Take Robert, for example. A former business executive, he was confident and assertive in the workplace. But at home, his grown children routinely interrupted him, brushed off his advice, and even ridiculed his lifestyle choices. Initially, he bit his tongue, hoping not to rock the boat. But eventually, he realized silence was only reinforcing the problem. So Robert changed. When interrupted, he'd pause and say, "I'll continue when I have your attention." When dismissed, he'd calmly respond, "We can disagree, but I still expect to be respected." And when his limits were pushed, he made it clear that disrespect would not be tolerated, not even from his own kids. Over time, his children adjusted. They saw that their father wasn't angry, he was resolved. He had expectations, and they began to rise to meet them. If your children don't respect you, ask yourself, have you clearly shown them what behavior is unacceptable? Because if you haven't, they likely won't know. And if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. Action 5. Stop giving without gratitude. Nothing depletes your sense of worth faster than giving endlessly to those who don't appreciate it. And parents, more than most, fall into this trap. You give your time, money, love, and support, even when it's not acknowledged, believing it's the right thing to do. But when kindness is met with entitlement rather than appreciation, it changes the entire relationship. The more you give without gratitude, the more you teach others to expect rather than value. And once that expectation is built, your generosity becomes a duty, not a gift. George's story illustrates this clearly. A devoted father, he never hesitated to help his children. He provided financial support, changed plans to accommodate them, and was always available. Yet his kindness was met with complaints and assumptions. When he finally needed help in return, they weren't there. Eventually, George shifted. He stopped rushing to their aid. He let their requests come, and even then he began saying no when necessary. At first, his children were baffled, annoyed, even. But slowly they began to respect him again, because they realized his help was not owed, it was offered. And that changed everything. If your efforts are going unnoticed, pull back. When you attach your giving to respect, you protect your energy and elevate its value in their eyes. Action 6. Build a life beyond them. Perhaps the most powerful thing you can do to reclaim respect is to show your children that your happiness doesn't revolve around them. It's natural to center your life around your family, but in the later stages of life, that can create unintended consequences. If your children see you as someone whose world stops without them, they may begin to take you for granted. People respect those who live fully, who find joy in their own pursuits, and who radiate purpose. When you lack that, your children may start seeing you not as someone they admire, but someone who depends on them for meaning. Eleanor's story comes to mind. A widow in her late 70s, she poured all her energy into her children's lives, calling often, offering advice, checking in constantly. But her attentiveness began to feel smothering. Visits decreased, phone calls got shorter, and Eleanor felt abandoned. Until she chose differently. She joined a book club, traveled with friends, began volunteering. Her life started to fill with new meaning. And as it did, her children became more engaged. They were curious, impressed, and respectful. So ask yourself, are you living a life they want to be part of, or one that's waiting for them to notice? When you start living fully for you, they'll start seeing you not as someone clinging to relevance, but as someone worthy of admiration. Final thoughts. Respect from your children isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn through example, through the way you carry yourself, through the boundaries you set, and through the life you build for yourself. If your children have started treating you with less care or regard, don't pour energy into anger. Instead, change your approach. Stop seeking their approval, because the less you need it, the more they'll offer it. Show them what dignity looks like. Step back from emotional dependence and stand tall in your own strength. Set firm boundaries. Stop giving where appreciation is absent. And most importantly, cultivate a life so rich and fulfilling that your value becomes undeniable. If you do these things, you won't need to ask for their respect. It will return to you naturally, not out of guilt, not out of obligation, but because they will finally see you clearly for the strong, dignified person you are. Thanks for spending time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments what stood out to you or how you plan to apply these insights in your life. Your feedback means the world to us. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep creating thoughtful content to uplift and inspire. See you in the next video.